All right, and joining us today for our special Sens draft preview episode here, we've got Sens superfan Craig Anich. Craig, how are you doing today, sir?
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, just another day in COVID paradise here, trying to take it one day at a time. But
Yeah, I got the mask beard going now. No more itch.
I was gonna say, yeah, you've changed your look since the last time you were on there, so you're keeping things fresh on your side, eh?
Yeah, somehow.
So, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to sort of figure out here that this is going to be one of the most pivotal drafts in recent memory for the Senators here.
Yeah,
They've got let's maybe even start by just running down what they've got on their board. So they've got 13 picks this year alone.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's just
They've got San Jose's pick in the first, their own pick in the first, the Islanders pick in the first. In the second, they've got their pick, the Islanders pick, Columbus's pick, Dallas's pick. In the third, they've got their pick, Winnipeg's pick, fourth, their pick, fifth, Tampa's pick, sixth, St. Louis's pick, and sixth, San Jose's pick. So to say that they've got some draft capital would be an understatement there.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. They can. They can pretty well control the draft if they want to. Really.
Yeah, yeah. So, but before we sort of launch into the actual specifics of it there, some maybe not altogether surprising releases from the team, given sort of the direction that they're going, but obviously will have an effect on some of the things that they do leading up to the draft. There is they dumped quite a bit of salary as well as some veteran players there they let go of Boro, Craig Anderson, Bobby Ryan got let go fresh off of Masterson there.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on some of those moves? Did any of them surprise you at all?
The Bobby Ryan one did a little bit, but I think at the same time it's probably. It's Ottawa was kind of recently kind of a dark spot for him. He got over. I can't speak to it, but just you could see the emotion and the family and on him when he finally came back, that how much it was really bothering him, and how much alcoholism really affected him, kind of thing. And sometimes you just need a fresh start to move on. And I'm sure he would have liked to have stayed in Ottawa, but at the same time, I think he's going to be able to turn it around pretty quickly wherever he does go. He never really fully lived up to the salary you're paying him, but I think at the same time, that was just extra pressure on him as well. So I think fresh start Bobby, fresh hands Bobby, hopefully, and whoever signs him will do well.
Yeah, get some extra padded gloves for him wherever he does end up there.
So not really surprised there. Anderson, not too surprised either. I think he deserves a shot to try to. Teams now, for the most part, I think it's the new thing will be more of a 1A, 1B if they can kind of thing, just to keep goalies fresh. And I think Anderson would be the perfect backup for another team who wants to make a push at the cup, and that's just not Ottawa.
No.
And plain and simple, I can see why they'd want to move on. And I honestly, if Anderson wants to go after a cup run, someone will sign him.
So do you see all three of them landing on their feet somewhere, or do you see maybe one of the three not getting signed this year, sitting the year out, or even just hanging them up altogether?
Maybe Anderson hangs it up. I think maybe what he might do, actually, it's a crazy goaltending free agency this year. He might just sit back and injuries kind of thing. Who knows what happens, and go take it from there. But it's going to be a competitive market this year. But at the same time, and maybe he can get signed, a team who's strapped to the cap can sign it for cheap instead of going big after Fleury or Lundqvist or Holtby kind of thing. So who knows? It all depends on Anderson's health and what the family wants to do, really.
Yeah. Well, that's just it too, right? We've got to sort of remember as well that as much as these guys are salaries and names on backs of the jerseys, there's other things to consider as well too there, as far as family and where they want to sort of pack up and move out to as well too. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I think probably Anderson's days as a number one goaltender in the NHL are behind him, and it would be in a backup role wherever he does end up. And does he want to go through, after having sort of been a part of the Sens ongoing rebuild process, on and off for the better part of 5 years, take away that one sort of mini cup run that they went on there?
Yeah.
Does he want to go to another young team, or is he, going to want to go to more of a veteran team That's sort of the way I see it as far as, potential targets for him. But
yeah, he's not going to do another rebuild.
Yeah.
After all the dragging that he did with Ottawa, I mean, there are some teams that should have been bottom 5 a long time ago, and he just dragged them into contention. So,
yeah.
I think the only player that the Sens would have wanted to keep would have been Boro, but I think he wants a fresh start too. Like, he's the one that wants to test free agency, and I don't know if maybe that has something to do with Melnick. He kind of got ripped on for that video.
Yeah, the two ferns with Melnick there.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
Yeah,
I feel like there is someone off screen. Like,
yeah, hopefully you got some sort of payout bonus.
Say what we tell you. Yeah. Good luck, Boro. I mean, he's probably like your perfect 5, 6, 7 defenseman. You can plug him in anytime you want. Really, he's a team player first. Like, I think he would have been perfect for the Sens rebuild, but I can completely understand why he would want to leave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only so long you can also keep some of their prospects as prospects. At a certain point, you've got to sort of free up some of these roster spots there and really take a long, hard look at it, right? Like, how many times can we have Logan Brown up and down from the minors and, before we need to make sort of that long-term decision on him there. So maybe that factored into it as well too. Maybe they want to bring in one of their younger defensemen there and give him more exposure on the back end. But I agree, the sort of shocking, well, not necessarily shocking, but the puzzling part though of it all is, yeah, it's a salary cap league, but there's also a salary cap floor, of which the Sens are nowhere near right now.
No, they aren't.
So how do we get from point A to point B there? Do you see them actually trying to target some of the bigger name free agents out there? And if that is their plan, what sort of luck will they have getting people in? Or do you see them taking on some of the, Carolina-esque Marlowe-like contracts, and we'll take your dead money, give us a nice draft pick there? How do they get to the floor?
A lot of it, for starters, is probably going to be signing some of their own players again. Do you know how many players they have under contract right now going into the season?
Wasn't it like 3 or 4 or something?
It's 10. Yeah, it's 10. They have a ton of roster holes to fill right now, and a lot of that will be from younger players coming up as well. So it's not going to be overly expensive cap hits, but 2 players right off the start that I can see that signing them would go a long way towards helping with the cap would be Tkachuk and Duclair.
Yeah.
Like, right there, that could be over 10 million towards the cap right there. And then you still have all the rosters to fill. And then they'll probably sign a couple of free agents, but I don't think it'll be too expensive. They might look at goaltending, just grabbing a goalie for cheap kind of thing, and maybe like a veteran defenseman to replace Boro. But even other than that, it's gonna be like you were saying, where they take on those contracts where the cap hit is high, but the actual money paid is low.
Yeah. Of those even 10 though that you were mentioning, how many were actually roster players from last year though, versus they're the sort of fringe up and down prospects, right?
You know what? Most of them. The only one. Sorry, I just got a laugh here. Marian Gaborik.
Okay, so
one more year.
Catch him off the list there pretty quickly.
No, he's still under contract. He's one of the ones that are still under contract.
Yeah. No, I mean in terms of actually.
Yeah. Okay. That's just wild. Yeah, the only one would maybe be Christian Wolanin, and I think he'll be permanently up this year. And a lot of that was just because he was injured for the start, and it took him a while to get going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's Shabbat, Gaborik, White, Anisimov, Zaitsev, Nielsen, Riley, Tkachuk, Wolanin, and Hogberg, and that is it.
Yeah.
So
I guess Hogberg will be probably up full time there then with Andy gone. So I would think,
and they've got some. They have enough goalies that they can fill in the AHL as well, right?
Yeah.
Like the forward and Gustafsson will be there. They also signed Mandalese as well. So, they're fine with the goaltending depth in the minors that they can afford to have Hogberg back up there with Nelson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that sort of leads us into our next little segue here is, the Sens have definitely numbers in the crease there. How blue chip some of these prospects still are remains to be seen. But I mean, Sean Simpson from TSN 1200 is on a full court press right now as far as the Sens should be taking Askarov at number 5, no ifs and or buts about it there. What's your initial take on that?
If Simmer was a defenseman in his pro career, he'd be pushing for Sanderson or Drysdale. No, I don't see it happening. I think part of it is the Sens can't miss this year. This is huge to have 3 picks, 2 in the top 5. They can't afford to miss on their prospects, on their first 2 picks especially. And as good of a prospect as Askarov is, I mean, goalies miss way more often than you'd think. Like, it really, like, being picked that high, who are the only goalies I can think of off the top of my head, like in the 2000s, say, Carey Price, panned out. Marc-Andre Fleury, had some good years. And then Rick DiPietro, number 1 overall.
Well, you just had a Vasilevsky just won the cup there.
Yeah, but he wasn't top 5 pick, though.
No.
He was a first rounder for sure, but that's kind of what I'm getting, like, first goalies to be projected that high. I don't know. It's tough.
No. So tough. My 2 cents on it is I see the rationale behind it. I'm all for it. If there's anyone who's maybe leading let's get Askarov sort of bandwagon here, more than Simpson is me. But like you say, at 5, does it make sense? Probably not. So what are now their options, right? You got to figure if it gets to sort of that Carolina range, the Hurricanes are going to be all over it, right? Like that seems to be the one sort of area that they would love to increase their sort of talent is in net. So you got to figure you got to jump ahead of them at least. Who knows who else is maybe trying to trade up to also take a run at them. So, there's, given the fact that they've got 5 million flipping picks here, you got to think that there's something creative that they can get done, whether it's packaging, the Islanders first rounder and, maybe a couple of the second rounders to sort of move up into that, 10 to 13 range there, where you still keep your, 3 and 5 picks there and take runs at whether it's, a stud defenseman or 2 forwards or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you can sort of go the route as well, too, of, trade back from 5, because Anaheim right behind you isn't going to take a goalie. They've got Gibson, right? New Jersey needs defensemen more than anything else in the world, right? So don't have to worry too much about them. So if you sort of go back a couple of spots, maybe pick up another, whether it's a second rounder or third rounder or something that you can throw into that Islanders package to make it even sweeter, then you go and you take a, maybe a Perfetti or, Raymond or whoever happens to be left on the board there. Then you get sort of best of both worlds there. I think the one thing that the Sens have been missing for years has been that bona fide stud goaltender. When you think of all of their best runs ever, right, it wasn't because of goaltending that they got to where they were, right? The Patrick Lalimes, the Ray Emerys, the cup of coffee they had with Dominic Hasek, right? Like,
he didn't really count.
Ottawa has not been producing Hall of Fame level, goaltending talent there at any stretch in their existence. So to be able to finally have that, I mean, you look at their flipping expansion cousin there, Tampa Bay. They at least had Javi Bulin, who had a phenomenal career for a large stretch of it there. They had Vasilevsky just won a cup with them there. So even some of the more recent teams that have just come into the league have had more goaltending success than Ottawa has over the year. So I see the rationale behind it, but like you say, at number 5, that's a tough pill to swallow, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I get it. I mean, from 4 to 10, 4 to 12 prospects range, you can kind of flip them around, but you know what? It a lot of it could depend on just who Detroit picks.
Yeah.
realistically, right?
Oh, yeah. They're the wild card of the draft, right? Because
Like,
they've got so many holes. They could take anything from a goaltender to a defenseman to a forward to, who knows? Maybe they'll pull a Bill Belichick style trade there and trade their first for a head coach. Like it could be
yeah,
anything. They just have so many needs across the board, and I think that is sort of that swing pick that's going to dictate where a lot of the rest of the draft goes.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And like yeah, I think there's two players. There's one player that Ottawa probably really wants. I think it's Raymond. I mean, they've had scouts watching him since he started up again too. So and by all accounts, he's been dominant. If Detroit takes Raymond, I think any pick is wide open, including trading back. But I think if Raymond's still there, Ottawa pulls the trigger, and then they try to get back into the top 15 with a package to try to grab Askarov.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I kind of see it that way too. At number 5, yeah, I mean, if gun to my head and he's still there, I'm still hoping to take Jamie Drysdale if he's still on the board there. And, I know a lot of people have been really hammering home the fact that, let's get 2 bona fide forwards and really, sort of jumpstart that offense there. But how often do you get the chance to get, a top 2 pairing defenseman who you're going to have under team control for years to come, who, having him skate along Shabbat on a power play or even separating them and having 2 really solid defensive pairings back there. Like that's how you win playoffs
Yeah,
here, right? Like
I
look at
hear
all
you.
the teams who took runs this year, right? None of them had, sieves back there on the blue end. It was people who were moving the puck. It was the Heiskanens of the world, right? It's people who were able to jumpstart the offense from their own end there. So I would kind of lean that way. Would I be upset if they took Raymond? Absolutely not. I think he's a phenomenal talent as well too, and but I could see either of those players going to Detroit as well too, because who knows where they're going to go.
Yep. And you know what? If Detroit does end up taking Raymond and Ottawa can't trade back, they might pick defenseman. I think it's going to be Sanderson though.
Yeah, I've heard some of those rumors as well too. He seems to be just shooting
Yeah,
up draft boards right now.
it's just he's a great skater kind of thing that everyone has going, which both players are. But I guess it's right now they just prefer his defensive ability and the fact that he has shown improvement offensively. So it's one of those. Yeah, it's all going to depend on team value, and maybe Ottawa already having Branstrom, Shabbat, 2 dynamic skating offensive defensemen. Maybe they go for a defensive partner with them.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I mean, speaking of rumors, there's now talk that what was, rumored to be a sort of a lock with the Kings taking Stuetzle at 2, they might be flip-flopping on that and actually taking a long, hard look at Byfield there. So given the fact that Ottawa's picking 3, if you had the choice of which one of those 2 players fell to Ottawa, who would you prefer and why?
I think I would prefer Stuetzle, and it's for the same kind of reason that I brought up with why you need to pick another forward at 5 as well, is just you can't afford to miss this draft for Ottawa. And I think Byfield probably has the bigger potential, but he's also got more risk.
Mm-hmm.
And Stuetzle he's already the talent of skating, the vision's all there already. Whereas Byfield, you're kind of hoping he develops more of that. So yeah, Stuetzle I think is the safer pick. And it's not like it's a bad, both guys are just crazy talented, but Stuetzle's ready now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I tend to agree with you there too. You want to take the sure thing, and there is no such thing as a sure thing in this draft. For all we know, Lafreniere could absolutely fizzle out and played 20 games in the NHL. Who knows? I don't think it's going to happen, but there's always that outside chance where it could be a freak injury, could just be lack of work ethic. You never really know what you've got on your hands until you actually get the kid in your own facility and see what he's like, right? But there's nothing that I have seen, from Stuetzle that would put up a red flag with me. There's no concerns there. Like you say, I think his ceiling is probably not as high as Byfield's, but his floor is much higher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Worst case
sure.
scenario, he'll be a serviceable NHL player. Right. Yeah. Byfield, just with the size alone and the fact that he is still so young and his body is still changing and growing and all of that, you don't.
And he's massive.
And he's massive too, right? Like you never know sort of what could end up happening there, and all it takes is something as simple as poor nutrition or something, and now you've got sort of the Dustin Bufflin problems as far as the weight's getting out of control and all that. Again, do I think it's going to happen? No. But there's just more risk sort of inherently involved when you get into some of those bigger bodies. It's just like in the NBA, right? The riskiest players are the 7 feet tall centers. You're either going to get a 15-year Hall of Fame career out of them, or they fizzle out and they're out of the league in 3 years because they've blown out their knees, right?
Yeah, they grow too fast.
Exactly. So, I mean, given the fact that Ottawa doesn't really control it, they're sort of have the luxury of not needing to make that pick or really worry about it. They're already locked into, all right, well, whatever's left over after the Rangers and Kings pick, we know who our guy is. So
way more pressure on LA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a ton on Detroit, because you don't want to miss. If you're Detroit, you cannot. Like as big as this is for Ottawa, it's whew. At least we have a chance. Like, okay, if we hit one superstar out of the first round, right? Detroit's, you cannot screw it up.
Yeah, no.
Like, and it's possible. As good as this draft is, I mean, it's possible to miss. Like, what's the best draft in recent memory, right? Like I'll go with the 2000s again, just because that's when I started paying attention more. It's probably the 2003 draft, right?
Yeah, that or the McDavid draft, probably.
Right?
So, yeah.
2003, you know who the 4th overall pick was? Nikolai Zherdev.
Oh, there you go. Stud.
It's surrounded by NHLers, and he just never really, this is the same draft that Corey Perry, Ryan Getzlaf, Jeff Carter, got picked later on.
Yeah.
That Friese, it's just, and I'm not even touching the defensemen yet that were picked here. It's just, that's, you know what I mean? You can't afford to miss it.
Yeah. I think whoever Detroit ends up taking right now will end up being probably a top 3 Calder finalist next year, simply because they are going to have zero path of resistance in front of them to playing time. Right?
Well, they'll get the minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think through that alone, they'll be up there. Now, whether that's going to be sustained excellence over the long haul, all depends on who they pick, right? But whoever it is, I think they'll have at least worst case scenario, the Alexander Daigle syndrome, where he come into the league and get minutes right away and maybe have a first couple good seasons, and where he goes from there depends on the pieces you sort of put around. Yeah, Detroit. I can only imagine the beehive of activity going on in that draft room right now, leading up to next week.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. Stevie knows what he's doing, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you see as the most likely scenario to sort of fold out here as far as Ottawa? Do you see them using the majority of their 13 picks, or do you think they're going to really put an emphasis on trying to package things together and move up as many of their sort of later rounders or even mid-second rounders to the late first round? Or how many of their actual 13 picks do you see them ending up using here?
Maybe 10. I think I'll still get a good haul, but every draft Dorian's in, he trades. Every draft. It might not be in the first round like some people are thinking, because maybe the price is too high, but I mean, their scouts seem pretty confident there's going to be a ton of players in the second. They're going to be able to move up in the second round for sure. They did it last year. They surprised everyone. They traded up to draft a goalie, right, in the second round. No one saw that coming. So, I mean, he trusts his scouts. His scout is going to be there with him because he lives in Canada, luckily. He can drive over. So, yeah, there's going to be a couple times where Trent Man's just going to be hammering on the table for this guy, and they've got the draft capital to trade up. So,
yeah. Yeah,
And
I
who
mean,
knows? Who knows? We could end up getting more picks, depending on contracts taken on.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
maybe we will end up picking 13 times, but they're going to end up with 15 total picks that they had.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if ever there was the year to sort of go for quality over quantity, this is the year, right? You've got all the draft capital in the world, more picks than you know what to do with here. And even if you did end up using all 13 of them, like where are you sending them? I kind of hope that they lean towards trying to package things together to move up and get as many impact players as they possibly can, because this is not the year to go for those, depth character dressing room guys,
no,
right?
they will, though.
Yeah.
They will draft a couple of those guys.
Yeah, but this is not the year to go and get 9 of them and only
No.
swing for the fences for 4, right?
No.
Like
No,
this is the year where you've got a loaded draft class where all the scouts are saying like there's impact players all the way into late second round, early third round that we can see actually make the jump to the NHL there, right? Whereas in years past, unless you're a real blue chipper, or happen to be a freak standout where you just happen to hit gold in the 6th round or something like that, it typically ends up being the lottery picks that end up being the impact players. But there are so many people in this draft who can make a difference that I already even mentioned on one of our previous podcasts there, like someone who's projected to go, I think he's like 60th overall or something like that, is you've got Alex Tuck's younger brother, so you've got someone who's got an NHL pedigree already. He's the younger brother, so that he's always been picked on and in the older brother's shadow and he's U.S. development team, all of that good stuff. So when that's the type of player who in a normal draft was probably late 20s, right? This year it's like 60th overall. I mean, there's value there. So
for sure.
Do I want to see them making all 13 picks? Absolutely not. I hope they move up as many spots as they can, because their team is young. And if there's one thing we've learned about the Senators is that as long as Melnick's at the helm, he's got patience for very small windows, right? And then once it comes time to go to their big boy salary contracts or UFA status or whatever, we've seen a lot of names leave.
Whenever they are ready, you kind of want them to be ready pretty close to the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's just it, right?
That window's going to be small.
Yeah, exactly, right? Do you want to be burning, prime Shabbat and Kachuk years, still waiting for, he's got another 2 years at University of Denver, or okay, we'll bring him over another 2 seasons from now, right? Like, especially given the fact that hey, I love Ottawa to death here, but it's cold in the winter, right? There's no packs here, right? So some of the people could get tired of some of the losing seasons and look for no state income tax, golf 364 days a year, right? So that's sort of my rationale. Let's just go with as many stud players as you can possibly get. If that means you end up trading half of your picks to get 6 picks in the first 3 rounds, so be it, right? But time will tell, right? We'll sort of see what ends up happening there. Now, given the fact that they've got so many of these picks, and I think that we're both in agreement that they will at some point try and move up there, who is a player outside of their pick 3 and pick 5 that you can see them trying to package that Islanders pick with something else to try and move up and get? Is there anyone that sort of stood out to you, or you heard any rumors that they're sort of in love with a prospect that you can see them making a run for?
I haven't really heard any rumors. I mean, we're assuming we already talked about Askarov and wanted to trade up for him, so I won't say him. There's one player that, and again, like, if you're going to trade up and you have the capital for maybe taking a chance and going pure skill, it might be Hendrix Lapierre.
Yeah.
Like, he's healthy and he's top 10. He might fall because of health concerns and because of COVID, who no one's really gotten a good chance to, like, there's no combine to check him out. You can't really bring him in for personal health unless you're Arizona, which that might have backfired for them. So, yeah, like he still has phone interviews and like they can talk to him kind of thing. And apparently it was more of a neck nerve issue than concussions. And those can definitely have similar symptoms.
Yeah.
So if that's been figured out, like trade up and get him.
I mean, you know, like you
before
said,
Montreal. It has to be before the 16 pick.
I was gonna say, yeah, they're probably taking a very long, hard look at him there, and just hoping that he falls into their laps. But you know, again, you know, I'm just reading an article here, and it's, you know, they are saying exactly what you're saying, more of a neck and spinal sort of injury. But I mean, those are two kind of important parts of your body there, so. It's
but if it's
like
not structural, if it's just like some swelling causing a pinched nerve kind of thing, like you can. Yeah, that's why it's important to get the doctors to look at it, right? But
when you can't,
haven't been able to. But you know what? If Otto's already got 2 top 5 picks, and say they like maybe this is their chance where they do go ahead and pick Askarov at number 5, and then they just trade up to grab Lapierre. It might be easier to go for that instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That way you still get the 2 top 10 forward skill, and you got yourself a goal. Like there's just so much they can do with it.
Yeah. I feel like Hendrix Lapierre is going to be this year's or sort of NHL version of Tua, right? Like there's going to be a team that just falls in love with him, doesn't care about the injury history, doesn't care that they weren't able to get him in for a look, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't phase them. They liked what they saw out of the limited, you know, sort of sample size that they got. Like I think he only had 18 games or something like that this year actually played. So, you know, you're kind of looking at tape from almost 2 years ago there to sort of judge how he holds up over a season. But I think at the same time, right, it's going to be someone is going to be in love with the skill set. They're going to be able to pay the price. And Lord knows if he's still on the board by the time Montreal comes up, I would be shocked if he didn't go to La Belle Province there. But
and if he does, I feel like that's red flags for everyone else. Like, why wouldn't they? Like, whenever Puljujarvi didn't get picked by Columbus and they went with Pierre-Luc Dubois, everyone's like, what? He was supposed to be number 3 for sure. What happened?
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, doesn't hurt that, you know, he's coming from the Q and a nice little French last name there that, you know, Montreal's been known to do that once or twice over the years there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's so many sort of options that are out there. I haven't heard anything definitive there, but you know, it all sort of depends on that Detroit pick, because, you know, if they end up swiping a defenseman, Lord knows New Jersey needs a blue liner back there. So if, you know, Sanderson and Drysdale are both gone by the time their pick comes up, what do? Maybe they reach for a forward that they weren't really planning on taking, and that has domino effects there as well too. But, you know, assuming that the big names as far as, you know, Raymond and Askarov are sort of gone and he's still available, I can see Ottawa maybe trading up to get something like a Holtz type player. Is he still going to be around in a spot that they can trade into? I don't know. I can genuinely see him going anywhere from, you know, 8 to 15, right? Yep. So it does sort of depend on what teams do in front of him. But given the fact that he does have sort of that skill set and, you know, that top offensive sort of potential there, I can see them making the sort of run to try and move up and possibly grab him if none of the other players that they were sort of in love with are still available on the board.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I can honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Ottawa still, despite all that picks 4 times in the first, if they do end up using a second, a third, and their late Islanders pick and to trade up midway. I can see them trading back into the first late with their other second picks. Like, they're going to be able to move around. So if they really like a player and they want to go out and get him, they'll be able to.
Yeah.
So
when
see
you've got
who they really like.
Second round picks, you've got the luxury of being able to trade back into the first pretty easily there.
Yeah, for sure.
Pierre Dorian needs to give Bill O'Brien a quick rundown on how to accumulate draft assets instead of just punting them at every step of the way there.
Bill.
So, I mean, we've talked a lot about prospects here, but I mean, that'll only get you so far as actually fielding a team next year, right?
Yep.
Do you see any free agents that Ottawa could possibly be targeting? And if so, what sort of position do you see them sort of coming in at? Are they going to target that, veteran defenseman to sort of?
Petrangelo.
They
Why
might
wouldn't
want
he want to
him.
come here?
Yeah, they might want him there. Whether that feeling's reciprocal or not is remains to be seen.
You got beaver tails. Come on.
Yeah, skate as far as you want on the canal there. More power to you.
Yeah. No. Yeah, they're not getting him. I can't see them going after a defenseman though. I mean, they already have a ton of forward prospects. There's going to be guys that are coming up this year, but defense is harder to learn. They're going to need another veteran defenseman, and I think they really are going to miss Boro.
Yeah.
How veteran they go, I don't know. Maybe they look at someone like Brendan Dillon, who's basically the same kind of player as Boro.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind them going after would be Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's probably going to hit the market because Carolina's just got, all the defensemen. So I can see him going for a place where he might get more ice time. And, you know what? The guy can play.
Mm-hmm.
The guy can play.
Yeah. No, there's definitely some interesting names out there. Maybe if they didn't sort of have the existing history with the team, I would have loved for them to have taken, a long, hard look at like a Mike Hoffman type player. But, is he going to be super thrilled about possibly coming back to Ottawa given the way he was sent off? Probably not.
No.
And like you already said, yeah, it would be phenomenal to go out there and sign a Pietrangelo or a Taylor Hall or Torrey Krug or something like that, right? But
yeah,
it's just not
they're going to get
not at the
paid.
stage of the rebuild where they need that over the top sort of home run swing.
Yeah.
And would the feeling be mutual for any of those types of players to join a rebuild? Probably not.
Probably not.
But I mean, I can maybe see them taking a run at a player sort of like a Sami Vatanen, who is going to be, the biggest problem with him is he's a phenomenal puck moving defenseman. He just can't stay healthy, right?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Anaheim and Jersey days there, that was his biggest thing. You get a 60-game season out of him, and that's a home run for you there. But he was coming off, a $4.875 million cap hit. He's probably not worth that on the open market as is, given his injury history. So would he come here on a 1-year prove-it deal and then maybe try and find greener pastures next year? Maybe. I see that type of thing happening. I would love for them just for, veteran experience and, given the stage of his career he's in, probably is due for number one, a pay raise, and probably isn't interested in joining a rebuild. But someone like a Kevin Shattenkirk would be amazing. But again, I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, no, but it's gonna be the players who they're probably going to be coming here on short-term deals. And if we like what we see out of them in the 1 or 2 year deal that we get them, then we can talk once the team is ready to make sort of those, deep playoff runs and all the prospects are panned out and all of that there, right? Would I be surprised to see them add some sandpaper? That's probably what they need, given the fact that Boro was sort of the de facto sheriff on that team. And now that he's gone, what do you do? So maybe even someone like, I don't personally like his game that much, but
you're going to say Gudis?
He's going to police it is like a Radko Gudis or something like that.
Yeah, he's, yeah.
But I mean, at the same time though, like, what do you do? Because if you're going to field as many rookies and young kids as they are, either one or two things can happen. Either Brady Tkachuk's going to break his hand at some point next year because he's the only one out there who's ready to, drop the mitts, but the amount of, shit that he stirs up as well too.
Yeah.
Who's going to have his back when he's mucking it up in front of the net? Or people are just going to be taking liberties and with some of the younger players pushing them around, and we're going to have an even worse record next year than they had this year. right? So at some point they've got to add some veteran presence, some bigger bodies, some people who as much as they're taking fighting and sort of that intimidation factor out of the game, it's still a part of the game. It's never going to be gone entirely. So
they'll get one of those guys. They'll get one of like Tanev, Hamonic, Gudas, Dylan. Like they'll grab one of those guys.
Yeah. All right. So looking into your crystal ball here, fill in the blank. This offseason will have been a success if the Sens are able to blank.
Ooh.
If you need to pick two things, you can. I'll double your options there.
If the Sens can re-sign Brady Tkachuk, get it done now, that would be huge. If the Sens can re-sign Brady Tkachuk, that'd be huge. And really, we won't know for a few more years. But I mean, if the Sens can hit on 2 of their 3 first-round picks and they are legit stars, like that's it. Because I mean, the last time we had these first-round picks, we pretty well struck out. I think we had 3, and we ended up picking Zibanejad, who we got rid of before he started to hit his prime. And then it was
didn't have a good year in New York or anything like that.
Yeah, no, he was a bum. He wasn't even gonna score 60 goals. Like and then the other 2 guys we picked was we picked Stefan Nason and Matt Pumple.
Yeah.
And I think I can't even remember. I could be wrong, but I feel like Shane Prince was either the last pick in the first round or the first pick in the second. But like that was it. That was the biggest draft in Sens history.
Yeah.
And we basically have nothing to show for it. So if they can hit on 2 of the 3, I mean, that's huge.
Well, that's just the thing is that you even look at that and how long ago was that? It was 6 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
And I don't think any of those 4 people that you've even mentioned are they even with the organization anymore.
No. Nope.
So that's just it, right? Is you hit the nail on the head. It'll have been a success if they actually get the building blocks that are going to help them, not just short term, not just hey, look at come back to the CTC, assuming we can even go to games next year. Who knows what the in-game experience is going to look like? That's a whole other topic for another day there. But they need to be doing things more than just gimmicks to sort of sell tickets, right? Like, hey, come check out all of our first round picks. They need to be bona fide players who are going to have an impact on the team, not just for the short term, but for the long term. Right. And I think that's one of the Sens fans' biggest gripes is just when they start to really fall in love with a player and start to, feel like, this is the guy who represents my town, my city, my team, my blah, blah, blah. He's either traded or they let him walk. Right.
Yep.
The Carlsons, the Stones, the list goes on and on and on. Right. So at a certain point, it has to be players that are going to be kept around. And that doesn't mean that they need to play their entire career in Ottawa. God knows across every sport known to mankind.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, the AAU generation here, jersey swaps and all of that, they always think grass is greener on the other side. So, I mean, even in pro sports, if Tom Brady can go out and switch teams, anyone can go out and switch teams. So I don't think they need to retire as Sens, but can we get someone that we keep for 8 to 10 years, like more than the span of his rookie deal and then his first bridge deal and then we let him go when it's time to pay him the big boy dollars there. That's I think key to the Sens offseason is just longevity of players.
Yep. Stability.
Yeah.
Get it started right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting for sure. We'll definitely be tuning in. We'll probably do a draft recap episode once we actually figure out where all the chips have fallen, and we can actually talk about who the picks turned into there. But between now and the draft, it'll be interesting. Do you think there's going to be any more sort of announcements or surprises, or whether it's a signing or a release or a trade or anything before the draft actually happens?
No, I don't think there's going to be too much going on. I think right now they're just probably they might be taking calls, but a lot of that is probably dependent on how the draft goes. They might just have deals in place ready to go and not pull the trigger. quite yet, right? Like they're not going to want to trade picks now ahead of time and then all of a sudden find out they didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
So it's right now there's nothing unless there's just like a ridiculous offer for the number 5.
Well, I
like
mean,
if Jersey just offers like the 7 and 18 or the 20 pick kind of thing, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, I was gonna say,
that's not likely to happen.
Dorian did just come out and make the announcement that we're actively listening for number 5. I mean, he's not doing his job unless he makes that announcement, right? Number one. But do you think there's really, unless it's a Godfather type offer that he can't refuse, do you think he's really serious about that? Do you see that actually happening unless someone absolutely blows the door off?
No, because I can tell you, like earlier tonight, Dorian says 99% they keep the 5th overall pick.
Yeah. Okay.
So
he's
already
already
on TSN talking to James Duthie.
So. Yeah, his previous statement then.
Yeah, he was talking to James Duthie. Like it's not. He'll listen because he has to.
Yeah.
But unless they're just, who was it in the NFL that decided to offer like basically every draft pick they had for the first pick? That was it for like Herschel Walker or something like that. Like just.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know about the
like unless that happens.
I know the New Orleans Saints literally gave up nearly their entire draft.
Yeah.
Ricky Williams back in the day.
Yeah, like it would have to be something stupid.
Yeah.
So
he's probably. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll touch base after the draft and get your Sens fan reactions to the players that they ended up taking there. But barring something absolutely insane happening between now and then, we'll let you go and we'll circle back after the draft. So stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll connect with you again there, Craig.
All right, man. Sounds good. Take care.